Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the FSL Lunch and Learn over the Chapter Accreditation Program, or CAP, as it's referred to. And we will jump into this. Let me silence my cell phone real quick. All right, can everyone see that? Perfect. So today we're going to be discussing the Chapter Accreditation Program, also known as CAP, and going through some of the basics, how to succeed, and then answering your questions at the end. So with that, I hope that everyone has heard of CAP at least once or twice before getting on this. This is something that all chapters are required to do from all four councils. And so with that, we want y'all to have a consistent and constant conversation that CAP is a thing. Pretty much anything that you do in the community, there's somewhere in CAP where you can submit it, get points for it, and really be able to track what you're doing. And so with that, please keep that in mind. That is something that we are striving to have y'all do, is that CAP is always something that you bring up in meetings or in other situations. And so with that, we'll go to the basics. So really the thing is that documentation is key for CAP. We, as an office, grade these, and so we can only see what you submit. If you only submit pictures, that's all that we can see. If you only submit a written information about what it is, that's all we see. And so documentation is extremely key for CAP and for your chapter to succeed with CAP. And so with that, if you don't submit anything, we can't give you any points. There are numerous times where we will be going through and grading chapters, and everything is housed through Google Drive. And so everyone, at least one person in your organization should have access to that Google Drive. It is updated. It has numerous different folders to hopefully make it easier so that you know what you're submitting and where you're submitting it to. But if we get into those folders where you're supposed to have submissions and there's nothing there, we just can't give you points. Even if we know that you hosted an event or did something that would fall into that area, we can only grade what's submitted. And so in the packet, in the actual packet, there's a full packet for every council. And so in that packet, there are expectations and clarification that go into what is either required or expected of that particular type of event, who needs to submit the information, what information we actually need to be able to award you maximum points. And so there are also numerous times where we get into the documentation that was submitted, and we can't award full points because it doesn't give us all the information that's needed for that section. And so again, what's required is proper documentation. Please read, please look through these sections, and we'll get into really how to succeed in this towards the end of this presentation, and how you can make sure that it's not just a one-person job. And that's something that we're also trying to have chapters understand, is that it's not just your CAP delegate's job to complete this. I mean, it is a long, intense document. And so this needs to be a committee. It needs to be at the forefront of chapter conversations so that you as a chapter can succeed and be able to flourish and do well at Kennesaw. And so something that we've talked about with different organizations is there are semesterly and yearly activities in sections. And so there are some things that are required for you to do once a year. There are some things that are required for you to submit and do every single semester. And that's also a place where we see chapters drop a lot of points, is that they only submit in one section or for one semester. So we'll get a fall submission, which is a great submission, looks great, but then we can't award spring points because we don't get a spring submission in that chapter's packet. And so making sure that you're reading, understanding, and seeing what is semesterly and what is yearly. With some of the new updates that are coming out, we are hoping to make that a little bit clearer in the description section, specifically where it says points possible, having it specifically state if this is semesterly or yearly. And there's two different wordings. There's either calendar year or academic year. Either way, in your submission, we just need to make sure that you're submitting it and doing what you need to do throughout those times. Something that really hurts chapters are fines, and fines go anywhere from new member presentation fines, so not following the guidelines that are set by the office if you go over time, or a numerous list of things that can happen with those fines, or recruitment infractions. And so those fines do eat into your points. We have seen chapters who, if they didn't have fines, they would actually be one step above. And so that's important to make sure that you're following all of those guidelines. And then as well, the deductions hurt. And so there are submission deductions. There are deductions for not attending certain activities or just not getting those points. And so the 0 points also hurt just as bad as deductions do. Really, the main places that deductions happen that we've seen are in your community service and philanthropy areas. And that's a big deduction. If we don't have any submissions from that, it's -25 per section. And so either community service or philanthropy. And that 25 points hurts. And we've seen it really either make a chapter not go into the next section like they should have been, or even be put on bronze because it's just documentation that we're missing, and we can't really finagle that portion. And so for all chapters, there's over 1,050 points possible if you're hitting, top tier engagement, top tier documentation, top tier submission. And so it's possible to get platinum. Platinum wasn't designed for everyone to get it, but with that, we don't want anyone on bronze. And so we'll go into why we don't want anyone on bronze. So this is not where we want you to be. We want you to succeed in CAP. It definitely helps with our community stance and how visible our community is to KSU. Bronze really takes away from your ability to participate in the community the way that you probably want to. And so anyone who's on bronze, anyone who gets below that 750 points will be put on a CAP probation. I'd specifically say CAP probation just because there are a couple different probations through our office, academics being one of the other ones that a lot of chapters have been put on before. And so there are two different types of probation that we mainly focus on, and CAP is one of those. And so there's a reduction in social activity. The definition of that can be found at the beginning of the actual CAP packet that you see and go through. It's on page 4 is where that probationary reduction of social activity is more defined. If you are put on bronze as a chapter, there is an email that goes out and says, you are now a bronze chapter. Here is what that looks like. And so if you got that, which I hope you didn't, but if you did get bronze this past time, please make sure that you're looking at that information, know what you can and can't do. Reduction of alcohol events, and yes, tailgating is considered an alcohol event. Even if you're just there and you're not consuming or providing alcohol to anyone, it is still considered an alcohol event, and on bronze status is not allowed. There are FSL monthly CAP meetings that are supposed to happen where you sit down with your in-office advisor, so either myself, Mallory, or Shawanda, and we pretty much sit down and discuss CAP. What are your upcoming events? What does your calendar of events look like? How can we help you make this event that you've done year after year after year something that you can potentially do on this bronze status to also fulfill your half packet requirements? And we'll get into the half packet in just a minute. And so with probation, you are also taken out of the ability to participate in a team for homecoming or Greek week. And not to say that you can't attend, not to say that you can't get points for those in CAP, but you won't be put into a team, because one of the reasons that we believe this probationary status is needed, especially if you're on bronze, is so that you're focusing on brotherhood, sisterhood. Usually academics fall into this. So we want you focusing on the things that really matter. And homecoming and Greek week are kind of that cherry on top, as opposed to really the base of what needs to be done for your chapter in the community. And so that's why you're taken off of those teams, but you still have the ability to actually go and see those events that are going on that week. Events must be focused on community service, philanthropy, or have an educational purpose. These can range. We've had chapters set up profit share nights, set up community service events with other organizations, either in their same council or outside of their council. And so there is a lot of things that you can really do with the events if you're on bronze. We just have to make sure that they fit one of those three areas and really work through how to get you all the points and documentation that's required. Thankfully, this last year, the organizations that were put on bronze who then had to do a half packet, they did great. They are all off of their bronze status. And so that is definitely something that we want to see. And it really, the bronze probation is also made to make sure that you start seeing and understanding that CAP needs to be a constant conversation that you have with your chapter. And so the half packet, you have to pass it. If you get bronze again, you still have to complete another half packet, but we'll start asking some different questions, really focusing on how our office can help you succeed so that you don't get bronze again. There have been questions about, well, what if my chapter gets bronze multiple times? I don't have a good answer for that, but what I can say is that as an FSL community, and really where fraternity and sorority life is heading and is on track to be, if you keep getting bronze as a chapter, questions will probably be raised either by our office or our superiors of, what does this chapter bring to the community? How can we either help them succeed, or how can we make sure that our community is strong? And so bronze multiple times, please don't get it. It just would cause a whole lot of conversations to happen that really may affect your ability to be at Kennesaw State. And so one of the reasons we don't want you to be on bronze is because we enjoy our community. We enjoy y'all being here. We think that y'all play a role in the Kennesaw State University community. And so we'd really hate to have to remove someone or have conversations over removing a chapter if they were on bronze too many times in a row. And so stay away from bronze. I did want to get into that though, because there's also some nice things about bronze. We do have the half packet. Not that I want you on it, but there are half packets. And so if you do a half packet every semester, even if you're not on bronze, you will succeed in CAP and make sure that you have all those submissions. And so it does kind of break down some of those yearly and semesterly things so that you're participating in the community the way that the packet was designed. And so from silver to platinum, as you can tell, there's not as much information on here, but the benefits are is that you're not on probation. You don't have a status through our office. We don't have to have these constant monthly meetings about CAP. However, if you have questions on events or how do we get X, Y, and Z event to fit into a CAP submission, talk to us. We're more than willing to talk through what that looks like to help you succeed, to help you flourish at Kennesaw. And so as well, something with all of the statuses, bronze to platinum, is you get to choose as a chapter what your recruitment rooms look like depending on how well you did on your submission. And that even goes for bronze. However, some of the recruitment stuff looks a little different. If you are on that bronze status, you don't get the top choice that you want and those types of things. So silver to platinum, silver is kind of the bare minimum. You've done, some of the things, but more at that lower tier, lower level points that you're getting. Gold is, you're participating, you're getting some of those higher tier sections and participation, you're throwing some of those higher tier events. And so that's where gold comes in. And then platinum is you're flourishing. You're getting top tier in a lot of different areas. You're racking up bonus points. And there's bonus points throughout this entire packet. And so pay attention to those. Those are those, 2-3 points up to, 40 or 50 points, depending on how many you do, that can really push you into that next level of being recognized. And then as well, at some point, and we are in the works of creating an FSL report card. There's legislation in the state of Georgia that will potentially require this in the future. But it's also something that we've been asked to do from parents so that incoming students can make a more informed decision about where they want to be. And this is one of the places, that report card, where you can really show your values. If you're a platinum organization with high grades and haven't been in trouble, you can go back to that and say, here's the proof. We're not just, telling you what we think you want to hear, but here's the proof that we are the organization that we say we are, and we are the organization that you will be joining if you're accepted. And so that's silver to platinum. Silver is a place where we at least want everyone. Gold and platinum is more staggered just due to the amount and bonus points that usually come with getting those statuses. And so how to succeed. As I said at the beginning, CAP is not a one-person job. All the organizations at Kennesaw, we know, have a CAP delegate, but it's not just their job. We want, and I want, that person to oversee a CAP committee. And that committee can be made up of exec members, of a committee outside of the exec. We want some exec members on there just due to the documentation that we ask for. But at the same time, this needs to be a group submission with your CAP delegate kind of at the lead, making sure that they're getting the documentation. But there's over, actually, let me just look. There are 18 sections to CAP. And so for one person to do 18 sections, that is put into a 23 to 24 page document, is hard. And so we need y'all to set up a committee. I would recommend 5 to 7 people on that, all the way up to 17, so that each person can focus on this one area, this one section to submit. That's their job. And so that's why I have assigned sections to those members on that committee, because we want them to be focusing on their certain section, their certain event, their sections that they need to make sure that they're doing. Because if you throw this on one person, it's a lot of documentation, it's a lot of information. And even though I work with it, I would not say that I'm an expert in any specific section of this. I just know a lot about all of it, or a little bit about all of it. And so definitely make sure that whoever is on that committee, whoever gets assigned those sections, that they're reading, they're understanding, they know what they need to do, what they need to submit. And then you can even set up some different submission areas as a CAP delegate and say, hey, you'll have access to these sections in this Google Drive. Probably not the one that you'll submit through, because we also want some of those vettings and ability for a chapter to say, hey, we have this documentation, this looks great, however, we're missing this section of the documentation. And so make this a committee. Create a CAP committee, create a group of members who are passionate about your organization. I hope all of them are passionate about your organization. This is really something, and CAP is really something that can affect your chapter for multiple years, because you'll go from bronze, doing half packets, to probation, to off of that, hopefully. And then you have to continue to rebuild those relationships that come if you're not on bronze. And so one of the big things is read. Understand what we're asking you to submit, the explanation, the clarification, documentation, everything that we are looking for. Just read it. There are many, many times where we'll be going through and we'll get a submission while we're grading, and we'll look at it and we're like, it's so close. We see a picture, or we have a small blurb about what the event is, but we can't give those extra points or the full points if we don't have everything we need. A lot of times we'll just get a picture of, 4 random people at an event, and we're like, great, we're glad that you're out there doing stuff, but we don't know what that's for. There's no title on the picture. There's no, these are how many members were in this picture out of how many members we have to give some of those percentage attendance points. And so please, in that committee, have them read, have them understand what their section is and really what they need to give us. And there's all different portions that we're asking for. Sometimes it's just a letter submitted. Other times it's a picture with a description. Other times we just want numbers or a description of what you did and some of those documentations. So please read those. We are working on getting some better documentation out from our office so that y'all can go into the forms section in your CAP folder, which hopefully is coming soon, and be able to say, oh, we did an ed program, or we're planning an ed program. Let's see what documentation we need. And that comes from our office, so that you can be like, okay, boom, we have X, Y, and Z signed, filled out, scanned, submitted, good to go. Perfect. And so we're trying to help y'all succeed in this CAP process. And as we go through, as we grade, we definitely see some common themes of like, we should probably either create a form for this or a better description that's in like a forms folder, so that your committee, your delegate understand what we're asking for in that. And so with CAP, plan ahead. There are multiple sections where we're asking you to co-host events with organizations in your same council, outside of your council, multiple organizations from different councils, RSOs, student government, those types of organizations, to really be involved not only in the FSL community, but also in the KSU community. And sometimes those events take more time to plan. And so plan ahead. Trying to do either an ed program with someone or a different organization to do your planned event and an ed program, that's probably going to take about a month to 2 months to actually get planned. And so texting, the Friday before your Sunday meeting probably isn't going to make a successful event happen. And so in that committee and even on your exec boards, whoever's in charge of planning events or ed programs or philanthropy, community service, whatever it is, we ask that they're also planning ahead so that everything is more smooth. And this is something that we're even working with the overarching councils to do, to make sure that, we're planning a semester ahead. We have rooms booked. We have the proper contracts that we need, depending on what we're doing. And so plan ahead. COVID-19, during this time, there's still a lot of questions. What are we going to do? What does it look like? I don't have a good answer for that. We are going to update the packets and make essentially a Rona packet that will have what that looks like. And so I'd say whatever virtual programming you're doing, and virtual programming can be chapter meetings, Netflix watch parties, Zoom calls, Zoom happy hours, whatever you're doing as an organization, track that. And what I would say on tracking that is try to tell us how many people are on, because we like to know those types of numbers. And those are things that we get asked from our superiors of, I see that this organization did something with Zoom. How many of their members were on? And so if you're giving us that information, we're better able as an office to tell your story. And as a department, we can really tell the story of why fraternity and sorority is needed at KSU. And so please just keep that in mind. If you haven't done any virtual programming this far since March 13th, you can start. There is no time or place where it's like, it had to do between this day and this day. No, from March 13th to whenever we get back to school, virtual programming, and probably even after, something that's going to be in the CAP packet is that virtual engagement. How are you meeting with your chapters, hosting events virtually, and what that looks like. And so just keep that in mind as you go through the packet. And then as well, how to succeed. There are a couple sections, and I say a couple, but there's like 6 or 7 on this list, where we really see chapters either get the full points, get deductions, or this is where we see like, if you would have gotten a tier 2, you would have been bumped to say a silver, gold, or platinum organization. But because we didn't have all the documentation or the participation wasn't at the level that it needed to be, you're still that step below. And so section 1.1 and 1.2, that's academics. It's number 1 in the packet because it's one of the most important things. You're going to Kennesaw State University to get a degree, and to get that degree, you have to stay at the university, and grades help with that. And so there's the threshold. Anything below a 2.65, you don't get points for, but there's also not a deduction. So this is one of the things that we're constantly working on, how to make CAP better for our chapters and how to make sure y'all succeed and understand. And so one of the things that was brought up, I guess a couple of years ago, was why are we getting these large deductions if we're not at a 265? Because that is really affecting what status we're on. And so I know that Bree and Mallory went through and said, we hear you, we understand that. There's no deductions if you have below a 2.65, but you also don't get those points. For these two sections, there is over 80 points just in this area. And so if you're getting those good grades, if you're getting, above a 3.5, above a 3.6, anything like that, above a 3.0, really, you're getting a lot of points for that. And then as well, 4.7 and 4.8, this is cap submission and documentation. There aren't points given in these two sections, but this is also where we see deductions happen. So whenever we say, your submission has to be proper, we need it to go through the Google Drive that we have. As I said earlier, if you have a committee and you have another Google Drive document, that's great. I encourage that. I want y'all to have all of your documentation in one spot. However, whenever you submit to the office for grading, it needs to be in those FSL folders. And this is where we see chapters lose between 25 and 50 points if it's not submitted right, or you copy and paste that drive that you have into your overarching cap folder. And one of the reasons that is because there is definitely a system that we've designed on how we grade. And so if we go off of that system, it can take us, 2-3 days to actually go through your new submission, depending on how that looks. And so make sure that you're submitting right. And then as well, 4.8 documentation. Don't forge anything. This is an automatic negative 100 points. You get a 100-point deduction, and then anything that is forged, you also lose points in that section. And so don't do it. Just don't forge documents. Section 8, which is advisor involvement. This is your off-campus advisor. We're asking that they participate in your chapter. One of the things that really makes a strong organization is strong advisor leadership. And so that is something that we want and need y'all to have, are those strong advisors. And if you're having problems finding an advisor, let us know. We're more than happy to work with y'all, to work with your advising group, to work with your IHQ or corporate office to get you leadership that you need and want in that position, who will push and make y'all succeed. And so having an advisor is extremely important, and it plays into CAP. And so that's one section where we either see people get great points or no points. And so section 9 is officer involvement. That is coming to round tables, coming to your one-on-ones with the office. And so there's a lot of points in this. It's kind of a small section, but there are a lot of points that can either be had or not given in that section. And then as well, section 11, which is membership education, there are 80 points for one portion of this section, 11.1, which is membership education. What that means is that you're bringing people into your organization, into your chapter, to talk to you about a long list of different things. It could be diversity and inclusion. It could be soft skills, life skills, interviewing, resumes, academic success, anything that they are presenting to you, you can submit. And so there are those educational programs. This is where we see a lot of organizations either just submit for the entire year or just one semester. We do expect you to do 2 educational programs throughout the year, 2 educational programs per semester throughout the year with different subject matter. That's something to where you have to bring in someone who's qualified from the outside. You can't have your members giving an educational program and get points for that. And so there's a long list of different departments at KSU who can fulfill these. we are meeting with them on FSL and Friends every Friday. Those are all organizations that you can bring in to really talk to your chapter, do a presentation, learn more about, be educated on certain topics. In our FSL and Friends, we're usually doing a larger umbrella view of what they can present on, but they can get down to the nitty gritty of what you really see your organization needs. And this is also where we give y'all permission to say, we really need help in, say, bystander intervention. We're going to bring in, health and wellness to talk about bystander intervention and how we can do better as an organization, but also how do we make sure that we're not just bystanders and that we're actually having those conversations. And so that's an important section to where you either get a lot of points or due to lack of submission, you lose those points. 14 chapter hosted events. This is where that tier system comes in. That tier system is either based on percentage of participation from your chapter or the type of event that you're putting on or co-hosting. And so co-hosting a PR event with someone, that's great. However, that's a tier 1 event. Hosting a community service event or a philanthropy event, that's a tier 3. So really, whenever you're planning ahead for CAP and even just for your year, looking at those different tiers and saying, oh, well, we were just planning on, say, doing a PR event where we talk about X, Y, and Z subject on the green. Let's actually turn that into, say, a ballroom event to where people can stop by and we have, say, a speaker or something like that. Now, I also say this with COVID-19, this may be a harder section to do. So be thinking about how do we plan these events, but also how do we make sure that if something happens, if we can't host it, say in person, how do we do the same event virtually? Do we use a Zoom account, Google Hangout, Team? What does that look like so that you can still get those co-hosted event points, so you can still do the things that you need to do as chapters? It's just going to look different. And then 15, which is Greek and campus-wide activities. So you're participating in events that we promote through our office. And this is also now encompassing of student activities, which are CAB, MAC events, any of those types of things fit into this section. Going to football games, not just tailgating, can't get points for tailgating, but going into the actual events, going into a baseball game, going into a volleyball game, attending, the symphonies or other types of events that are hosted through campus partners and departments can get you a lot of points here. And this is also where we usually don't see submissions. And so whatever you're going to, whatever your chapters are participating in, this is why it's important that this is a chapter conversation and at the forefront. Because say that let's look at CPC, an organization that has over 100 members. You can't always plan and say, oh yeah, we're going to have 100 members go to this one KSU event. But there are potentially events, especially as freshman and sophomore, that are required for your courses. And so if that's going to a symphony or going to a play, a student play, or anything like that, make sure that your chapter members are counting those, taking pictures, know what the documentation is, because this is a place where you can get so many points that we just don't see a lot of people submit in. And then finally, community service and philanthropy. Community service, to me, sounds self-explanatory, but at the same time, just to clarify, this is where y'all are going out into the community, picking up trash, giving back, working at a soup kitchen, anything like that. On the flip side of that, philanthropy, I think what comes to mind is how big was the check that we wrote? That's great. We love for y'all to write checks, to raise money, to give that money to organizations, but I know that a lot of organizations do Christmas donations. They do stuffed animal donations. They raise, socks. We always have like a sock box in our office, and so that counts as philanthropy, not as community service. And so I am working on getting some of those breakdowns of, say, you donate 3 bags of clothes to a battered women's shelter. It's not exactly community service because you're not there cleaning or giving back, but it is philanthropy. There are things that you are giving that have a monetary value. And so that's a place where we see either no submissions, or the submissions that we get just don't fit exactly what we need. And so we can't give those points, or we see no submissions. In this section, community service and philanthropy, if you don't do any of those, if you don't submit anything to us, it's negative 50 points. And so that really hurts. We see that hurt a lot of chapters. And this one's rough because we see it and there's no submission and we're like, we know y'all are doing stuff. But as I said at the beginning, we can't give points for things that we don't see and we can't document. So with that, these are the sections to look at, to remember. And then as well, as I said, there are bonus points throughout this entire document. Going to your regional events with your organization, bonus points. Say that you're in an organization, just a regular RSO, and you go to a national event for that organization, there's places where you can get bonus points. And so bonus points are really that sweet spot to where that whoever is submitting bonus points, we're seeing usually get gold or platinum. These really bump you up. They really give that extra view of what your chapter is doing and give us the ability to really make sure that we're telling your story and telling it well. And so with that, we will go into questions if it'll let me. There we go. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that we can have kind of a face-to-face conversation about this with questions. And so if you have a question, please unmute. You can unmute, share your camera. So it's a little bit easier to have that face-to-face conversation. So who has a question? Is there a question? I'm open to answer anything. Any questions? Verbal, chat?
I'll ask a question.
Perfect.
Okay, so you were talking about like going to campus events such as like theaters and things. So our chapter, we do have a large chapter. Is there a certain number that is required for those kind of events, or is it just like?
Yeah, so this is where the tier system is. And most of those events, let me just turn to it, are tiered in like percentages or numbers. And so what that section says is tier 1 is at least 10% of the organization or 5 individuals, whichever is smaller. So Katie has 160 members. You're muted. Anyways, over 100, right? And so, if it was just that 10%, it can be hard to get, 14, 15 people to go somewhere. That's why it has that or 5 individuals, whichever a smaller section. And so that's where it starts. And then up to tier 5. And so it goes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. Or the individuals is 5, 10, 15, 20, or 25 individuals, whichever is smaller. Okay. And that's why I said, if you have new members, freshmen or sophomores who come in and they're, required for a class to go to a symphony or something, have them take pictures, have them know what we need for that. And y'all can get points for that, because I'm sure that you have members doing these things. Just, are they actually getting back to the CAP delegate? Do they even know that they can get CAP points? And so that's where we're also trying to change some of that conversation of anything that you really do on campus, you can count somewhere in CAP.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if they were to go to that, like, would you prefer it if we had like a sign-in sheet as well as a picture, or would a picture be enough?
So this is where it goes back to like reading the documentation and what that looks like. And so what that section would be, let me just specifically read it. So Kennesaw State University sponsored event. So photographs of chapter members participating or attending in the event. Make sure it is clear what event they are at. And so this goes back to, we'll get a picture of, 6 people outside of, a building on the green, and we're like, I don't know what this is for. So that's where, if it's just a picture submission, we need to know what it's for. What I would recommend, and also what I'm trying to work on to get to y'all, is like a form where it's like, upload this, like paste the picture in here digitally, and then give us a little description, a sentence or two of, these are our sisters who attended X, Y, and Z KSU event on this date. And so that helps us with giving those points, because if it's just, 6 people in a picture with the caption of like JPEG 37, we don't know what that's for. And so that's what I would say on there, is just make sure that we understand if it's someone from the outside, like y'all may look at it and be like, oh yeah, that was the whatever symphony that they went to. We're going to look at that and be like, I don't know what this is for.
Okay, so like what would help too is like maybe if they held like the program, say if it was for a symphony or like a play or something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, this is Kristen. I know that we've got access to the Google Drive, and I know we hold our chapter members accountable, but is there any way that we as advisors can come to you guys to say, how do you think it's good? Like, could we do like check-ins with you guys in addition to members? Are you guys open to that?
So I think we're open to it. However, the way that most chapters submit is they wait that 2 weeks before and actually submit stuff. So
Gotcha.
If you wanted to check in, the conversation may be, we don't have any submissions as of right now. Something that we do as an organization is, or not as an organization, but as a department, is pretty much 2 weeks before the final submission, an email will go out and say, actually it goes out about 3 weeks before, because we need about 2 weeks to review, but we'll say, hey, your final submission date is this day. Let us know by this day if you want us to review and give you feedback. And organizations that do that usually do better, because we'll go through whatever the sections are that you want us to review. We can't go through the whole thing. It's just usually not plausible. So if there's sections where you're like, oh, I want more information on how we did or what our submissions look like in, 5.3, we'll go through, give you feedback, and do that. But we'll do that. You just have to tell us which sections, and let us know by that priority review deadline date that we send out.
Cool, that makes sense. And then I guess as a follow-up to that is, I know a lot of advisors work, and I know this meeting was kind of a short notice and probably why participation only has like 12 members. Because we also work, is there any way that we could get notification of these meetings like within a week so we've got time to plan?
So all of these meetings have been scheduled for about a month. with our June newsletter that just went out, we do have all of the FSL and Friends, Lunch and Learns, hot tea, or what is it, hot drinks and hot topics on there. And so that's really where the calendar is.
Okay.
If you follow the Instagram page for the department, which I believe is Kennesaw Greek Life, that's, if you go to the link tree in there, that's where we have all the Zoom links as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I don't have Insta, so okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. So that's usually where they are. And then these also get posted to our Instagram account as like a Insta Live review.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. What other questions? Oh, so there are members of our community who have volunteered to be a part of the Dean of Students interview on behalf of FSL. Are they able to receive CAP points for their chapter? The answer is yes. That would actually go under volunteering for a department event. And so that was sent out. I believe it's 5 points per person is what that would be for CAP. In that section, that is something that we're supposed to track, but also if you remind us of some of that, of like, hey, we had X, Y, or Z member participate in this focus group that you asked for, or these interviews or anything like that, yes, we will give you points for that. What other questions are there?
I had another question. So for the FSL and Friends that y'all have been doing every week, do we need to, when we submit that on CAP for CAP points, do we need to have like a screenshot that we have sisters on, or are y'all just going to cross-reference that, or is it just kind of?
So a screenshot would help with like, yeah, these are who they are. However, one of the reasons that we ask y'all to change your names and then give your chapter affiliation is so that we can go through and also give those points with that. Yep. What other questions are there?
Hey, Kristen. This is Mallory Drake. I just wanted to follow up on your question and the newsletter Adam was talking about. I've been sending that out each month of basically since we went kind of virtual, and it's something I hope to be able to continue once we get back to school and stuff. But as you just said that, I realized I have not been sending it to advisors. It does go to every member of the community, not just like presidents, but every member of y'all's organizations. But I have not been sending it to advisors, and I will definitely change that for all of the newsletters to follow. And the July one should be coming out next week. And like Adam said, that includes a calendar, and on the calendar is tons of programs and events, and ones that are worth CAP points are written in red on the calendar. And so I just wanted to say that and let you know that'll be coming to y'all's inbox from now on.
Okay, great, thanks. Because I know the collegians are overwhelmed with a lot of meetings, and I know that we've got a lot on our plates as well. So I just want to make sure, because I feel like I've missed some things, and I don't want the chapter to get penalized. So I just kind of wanted to get I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Sorry it hasn't come to you before now.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks, Mallory. And then as well, just for your information as well, Kristen, Fridays, usually from 1 to 2, are FSL and Friends events where we've talked to Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery, we just did parent and family programs. Some of those do have to kind of switch and shift, but we do try to get those on Fridays at least between noon and 2, so that people can hop on those. Lunch and learns are usually designed to be from about 12 to 1 or 1:30. And then hot drinks and hot topics, I believe, are usually on Tuesdays. And so like the lunch and learn, this is the only lunch and learn this month. There's only one hot drinks and hot topics per month. The FSL and Friends is more of the constant program that we do.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. What other questions are there? Well, if there are any more questions, thank y'all for being here today. And I hope that you have a great rest of the day.